Well, welcome to Check Up with Dr. Mark, and I'm with Pastor TAE SHIN today, and he is a great pastor, counselor, and friend. We are so grateful to God that we've been able to connect over Facebook and with community recovery and sharing each other's ministries, and also where we are able to now help Pastor TAE connect with us and us with him and now with you. So he is a great coach, pastoral coach and trainer. And so Pastor TAE, we're glad you're here with us today because it's an opportunity for us to get to know you. And your passion is to train others, raise up, God's people, but also to help others too. That's another big reason why we're doing our interview today. And so why don't you tell us more about your coaching ministry and what God's been doing through you?
Dr. Mark, it is indeed an honor to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm looking forward to sharing with your audience, and hopefully they'll get great value because we're here to bless them. Acts 20 is more blessed to give than to receive. And so definitely want to just inspire people today and help them. But thank you for the opportunity to share about the ministry. And I'm looking forward to getting to know your ministry as well. But to your question about the coaching ministry, um, it's really counseling and coaching. And as you know, both of them, there's a lot of overlap. But I spend about 50% of my time doing counseling and coaching. And then the other 50% of my time training coaches and counselors and entrepreneurs. So the counseling and coaching, as you know, counseling is more about past problems and dealing with unresolved issues and everything from anger to depression, midlife crisis, addictions, pornography addictions, and things like that. We do that all online for people all over the world who might need help in that area. A lot of time spent on marriage breakdowns and dealing with how to resolve issues there. That's a huge topic there.
Mhm.
And then there's coaching, which is more about the future. Counseling is more about the past, and coaching is more about the future. And there we talk about, life direction and a little bit about the coronavirus. We certainly don't want to blame the pandemic because if it weren't for that, it'd be some other challenge, right, in our life that will, be a challenge or a roadblock. And so, coaching is all about the future, life direction, transitioning out of your current situation, which is a really hot topic because a lot of people want to follow their passion and dreams to serve God more effectively. So the concept of greater purpose comes in a lot when I do coaching. But the other 50%, as you mentioned, and I appreciate that very much, is the training or empowering
Yeah.
of coaches and counselors and entrepreneurs. And many of them are just regular folks with a dream. They're not, all like with fancy degrees or anything, but God is calling them. And, you look at many of the prophets and people in the Old Testament and New, the regular folks that God has given a big dream to. And so really empowering them to launch. And so that's a big part of what I do is helping them launch their successful business or ministry so that they can experience freedom and impact, follow their passion. And so that is also done online as well. So that's a little
Very.
bit of an introduction. Yes.
Yeah. And explain too, maybe some steps that you take in helping those, and some of those who are watching are probably wondering, getting my own business going. Wow. I
Yeah.
think God's been
Yeah.
tapping me on the shoulder to explore that. What would that look like? What are some steps, an approach? Expand on
Mhm.
that if you could.
I'd love to talk about that. And again, I want to say that I spend every day talking to people from all over the world, literally from every continent. And they're just regular folks who do regular jobs, but
Mhm.
suddenly feel this desire to transition out and to follow the dream that they had for a very long time. And maybe it was just a daydream. But then
Mm.
now, as they're getting older or whatever life chapter they're in, they're suddenly feeling like, now is the time. Maybe the pandemic has been a little bit of a contributing factor where they're now feeling a little bit in transition and feeling like they have to move on. But if you're asking about steps, there really is a number of steps, but
Hmm.
the goal is to make it simple. The goal is not to turn it into rocket science and make it really hard for people to accomplish or say you got to get all of these things in a row and like that. It's about making some simple decisions about what route you want to take, and then there are some steps that you need to execute in order to get there because you want to turn your daydream into an actual plan that you can execute, and that's very important. So I think, for example, you can make a decision as to how you want to be empowered. Like it's very hard to be in your current state and just suddenly launch a ministry. Most people, including myself, you just can't just suddenly launch, the next day. There are options to consider. For example, there are, do-it-yourself programs. There's online courses, and
Hmm.
there's definitely good ones out there. And we offer that as well. And I think the good ones are the ones that really focus on the real world. And I'm going to say many of the courses out there don't do that. They just teach methodology or theory, but the real world is a whole different place where you got to deal with everything from becoming the authority
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
marketing and branding and how you share your message with
Hmm.
clarity. And so I think the good courses out there are the ones that really address the real world because Dr. Mark, there's like a 90% failure rate in any business or ministry, especially in the world of coaching and counseling, where, I mean, just do the eyeball test. How many counselors and coaches doing it full time do you know? Most people can't even name five. And so the failure rate is so high. I think the good courses or programs out there have to address the real world. So one option is you can take a do-it-yourself course. Those are for, I think, the ones that are self-starters and really motivated. They can do that. But there's nothing wrong with the second option, which I think is the best option, and that is to join a mastermind. And I'm not talking about a lot of the groups out there, which I don't think are real masterminds, and we can talk about that later. But
Okay.
a mastermind is a place of where real action takers get together and they uh, experience accountability. They experience a real feedback and set up
Hmm.
trackable goals. You sit on the
Hmm.
hot seat and you present your thing, and everybody, you know, jumps all over it and gives you a hard time out of love. And that's the one thing you can't get from your friends and family because they're too nice to you. And so you join a mastermind and you deal with everything from your mindset to the clarity of your message to marketing strategies to monetization because
Hmm.
that's one of the big reasons why ministries fail because they haven't figured out how to not only put food on the table but to sustain it and to move it forward. And so there really is a big business aspect to that. So I love the mastermind option. That's actually a big part of what I do is to create those very small groups where action takers can get together and to do that. There is a third option, which is for the real action takers, and they want the one-on-one coaching. And that is the fastest way to get to your dream because you don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to say. And you can learn from somebody who went through the same mistakes and can lay out a plan, a customized plan. And I think that's the best way. But clearly,
Hmm.
number two is I think one of the best ways, the mastermind approach. So those are some options as far as I would say the first step is to get involved in either the do-it-yourself, the mastermind, or the private coaching or counseling, and you can quickly jumpstart your dream and your ministry. But I guess you have to decide
Yeah.
whether it's just a dream, like you just want to talk about it, or are you ready to really, I mean, just take the next step to
Mm.
turn your dream into a reality. And I think for those people, those are the three options that they can take. And of course, Dr. Mark, we can talk about the logistics and the steps that are necessary to then move forward into actually turning your dream into a reality. And that'll be a fun conversation, but we can talk about whatever is interesting to you and your audience. That'll be great.
Well, and that's the whole question here. Many are seeking what's my next step in life, and we deal with life issues here on this segment here as part of Community Recovery Checkup with Dr. Mark, and we also have our other segments, and our overall goal is to help our viewers to work through their life issues. This is one of them. It's purpose, it's direction, it's what do I do day to day? And as I deal with my depression, as I deal with my anxiety, as I deal with my uncertainty. And so as they're considering coaching, we've dealt with many coming through our recovery groups in person who said, yeah, as I get out of my rehab program, as I'm looking forward, I want to become an addictions counselor, number one. And I want to do this, I want to do that, a lot of similar things, but they don't necessarily have that plan. So this is very helpful today. And especially now, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I love that. And
Yeah.
please, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I love that because I think that is so real. That is real life. And I really believe that God does take our pain and suffering and setbacks and failures and anybody who is in recovery. I mean, hold your head up high because God has a great purpose in taking that and turning it into a great purpose in their life. And so if they are then in their minds now processing their pain and suffering and addiction and to say, wow, I can take that and I can turn that into a powerful ministry to help other people because I went through that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a beautiful thing. And I think that's exactly the process that they have to go through from pain to purpose. And then you're asking what are the necessary steps along the way, which is such an important question. I'd love to talk to you about those actual steps. And I'm thinking any of your listeners right now who are suffering from anything from depression to any kind of addiction, that they would be inspired today to take the very setbacks in their life and turn it into a great purpose. And so this is a beautiful conversation.
Thank you. And we always say here at Community Recovery, I've said this on our stage because we have a worship service and then we have, well, and a meal beforehand. And of course, then we do groups afterwards. And of course, pastoral care and other things during the week in between time. And we always say for every setback, it's a set up for a comeback. And that's been a great, another one, great slogan we've been able to use. And that's what I'm hearing you say too, because we see setbacks as a time of molding and shaping for a big comeback in God's timing. And that's, of course, where I'm hearing you say, this is how we integrate God's word in coaching. Explain a little bit more on that as far as being in tune with God and helping others.
Well, I love what you said about setback and comeback, and those are great slogans. And I think we need to keep coming up with slogans to give people very simple yet powerful ways to understand. I think we spend too much time complicating things, and we got to just make the message very clear. So I love that setback, comeback. That's awesome. I also like your setback. See it as feedback. Okay. Because a lot of people see their setback as like a final statement or judgment, like you stink, you're a failure, you're a loser. But setback, according to the scriptures, is feedback, meaning it's a life lesson for you. You learn from it, you grow from it. That's the feedback, and then you take that, and then you can turn it into a teaching ministry. So when I hear from you that if you have people who are in recovery and they want to now be an addiction counselor, I mean, what is that? They're taking their setback, they're treating it as feedback, as life lessons, and they want to now share those life lessons with other people. And so it's all good. I love that. And I do think that that's the beginning step. And then there are some other steps that we should make very simple
Hmm.
and very actionable. Because here's the thing, Dr. Mark, and that is, if it's not actionable, it cannot be measured. And if it cannot be measured, it won't get done. And
Hmm.
that's a big problem in Christianity where people talk in kind of vague language like, I'll just try harder, okay? Or, this language where there's nothing that's measurable. And it's great that they're going to try harder, but unless you have measurable goals, and that's what I hear you saying is, you're saying that a lot of people are inspired, they want to reach their goal, but they're now looking for concrete steps. They're looking for measurable goals, things that are trackable. That is very important, and we should definitely talk about that today. Time permits for us to lay out some steps, and maybe your listeners can really say, okay, I'm going to write these steps down and I'm going to try to put them into action.
Hmm.
So maybe we can do that.
And that leads us right into our next part of this segment is to talk about uncertainty, because today, uh, as we are doing our recording here, I'm going to be also uploading another segment with another life coach and his approach, and also now with your approach. And so it's just been great. Of course, both Christ-centered, and
Yes,
we need more of that. We need more of
yes,
that input and that feedback.
yes.
Thank you. Um,
Hmm.
I think we want to help our viewers to confront uncertainty, to confront the setbacks, because if they don't, like you said, where are the metrics? And the Bible is very clear about metrics. It is. It's not just something pie in the sky. It's definitely something that is concrete. God is about reality, and He's made us with purpose. So, but I want to. What have your clients that you've been working with here lately with this pandemic? What have they been coming to you with as far as uncertainty as a theme?
Well, I certainly respect the gravity and the weight of the pandemic
Yeah.
and how it has contributed to the uncertainty. There's
Mhm.
no doubt. And not just in an emotional way, there are people who have suffered great losses. And we definitely want to keep them in our prayers, the ones who have
Yeah.
lost jobs, the economic collapse, and the loss of options, nobody's hiring, so many things that I think exacerbate or just intensify the uncertainty.
Hmm.
And since you're asking about my clients and so forth, I've been doing this for 38 years, and I want to say that the theme of uncertainty and lack of clarity has always been there. And I know
Yeah.
that the pandemic is receiving a lot of attention, and understandably so. But this has been a constant challenge. And excuse me, I don't want to also, in any way, focus on just one group and say, oh,
Mhm.
they lost their job, for example,
No.
and then they have uncertainty.
Right.
But I actually have spoken to a lot of people who are very well off financially, people who have a lot of success, but they also have uncertainty. I have
Hmm.
clients who are millionaires, and they have so much money, and the pandemic hasn't affected them at all. But they still have uncertainty.
Mhm.
So the uncertainty is just kind of an undercurrent in our lives that it's always going to be there regardless of whether, I mean, if it weren't for this pandemic, wouldn't it be something else? I mean, we would have another challenge in our lives. So I want to say, I hope this message resonates with anybody who is at a crossroads, fork in the road, whatever analogy,
Yeah.
anybody who's poor or rich or whatever situation that you are in. Uncertainty is kind of like a dark cloud that hangs over us. And so
Mhm.
I want to say that it's something that I've always dealt with my clients way before the pandemic
Yeah.
uh, ever hits. And by the way, I want to throw myself into there to say I deal with uncertainty and not. I'm wondering what God has for me and what I should do. So this, I think, is just such an important topic. People are searching for the opposite of that, which is certainty, and
Mhm.
they want the certainty. But I just want to open up just a quick perspective and
Sure.
Mark, you can
Carry.
take it anywhere you want, but I think a lot of that desire for certainty
Hmm.
and to get away from uncertainty is connected to fears and anxiety. And
Hmm.
I've dealt with that a lot because there's such insecurity and instability. They want to quickly just grab onto anything that might give them clarity or certainty, and they just want to get that fear out of their life, and they don't have anything to do with that. And so the certainty that they're seeking might, again, it's very complicated. And I guess what I'm saying with my clients, um, I really focus on their fears,
Hmm.
their anxieties, and their motivations, and I mean, what is really driving them. And many
Hmm.
times it's fears. They just want to get away from that, feeling of uncertainty. But the truth is, the fears are always going to be there. Okay, the uncertainty is always going to be there. I
Yeah.
think we need to attack it. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is, despite the uncertainty, you have to move forward. And I'll give you an example of somebody that I talked to yesterday without revealing him or
Yeah.
any details. But he is a highly successful man,
Hmm.
and you would think that he has no care in the world and
Hmm.
he's living the good life, but he now has come to the final chapter of his life, just like me, my final chapter of active ministry, and he had a lot of uncertainty. And we talked for almost 2 hours about uncertainty, and that might surprise your listeners who think that only a certain group that might have that. But the truth is, I think it's always going to be there. And the
Yeah.
answer is you have to follow your passion, and you have to use your gifts. You have to find your place in the world and solve a problem that this world has. And you have to step out of your comfort zone, because your success, and it's not necessarily connected to certainty, because we're living in an uncertain world. We're living in a world where the rug could be pulled out of us at any time. And so it's not the pursuit of certainty, it's the pursuit of passion and purpose despite your fears. And I mean, how could we guarantee or make certain to any of your viewers or any of my clients to listen, if you plug in these 3 steps, you're going to get certainly $1 million and you're going to be fine.
That's
There ain't
right.
no way that's not going to happen. Okay,
No.
but we're not offering guarantees. What we're uh, inspiring people to do is, despite the uncertainty, press on and move forward and follow your passion. And breaking news is that that person I just spoke about was so successful, but yeah, was uncertain. He just emailed me a plan saying, "Take a look at this plan. I am ready to move forward." And I think that should be the case for everyone who says, "I'm not going to let my uncertainty be my roadblock. I
Hmm.
am going to move forward, and I'm going to follow my passion, and I'm not going to worry about the pandemic or any other future crisis. I'm going to follow God's plan for my life," which is another big topic, but I'm going to follow my passion and I'm going to execute the plan, and I'm not going to let anything stop me,
Hmm.
because it's not about a pandemic, or it's not about, I don't want to make light of the loss of job or anything like that. I think
No.
we've all been in transitions. But I want to say it's not about what happens outside of us. It's about what's happening inside of us, and then letting it flow out. Jesus talks about the overflow of the heart in
Yeah.
Luke chapter 6, verse 45. And so it's about the decisions we make inside here. And of course, here, it's the
Mhm.
control center, and it's about getting that mind right and moving forward. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I'd love to get more specific if you want.
Well, sure. And we say that all the time. Move forward. Move
Yes.
forward. What is the plan? What we
Mhm.
often find, and I'm sure you did too with your clients that are well off and our other clients that are not so, is sometimes they're stuck. And it's awesome to hear about your client who is, yeah, even though he's well off, where do I go next? You know, good problem. But of course,
Mhm.
he emailed you a plan, and I guess, well, maybe I'll take it in this direction where he probably, for those who are well off and even though they may have all the money in the world, what's missing?
Mm-hmm.
What's
Yeah.
missing? And that's where that fear will come in, and also that address that a minute if you could, because whether you have the job or you don't have the job, you have the financial security or you don't. In spite of that, what inside might be missing? And that causes that barrier where, boy, they need to take another baby step towards that plan. Expand on that.
Well, I think there are many things that are the opposites of fear. And I
Yeah.
think you said it very well that fear is kind of like a roadblock, or you could say that fear freezes people.
Okay.
You use the word stuck. And so these are very real world problems of being stuck. And so I think we should take a minute and talk about fear. And, in the Bible, there are many things that are the opposites of fear. There isn't like one definition. There's faith, of course, that, many people, that's a popular way of looking at fear, as to say that faith is the opposite of fear.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to look at it, and this is what I'm passionate about, is there's a lesser known truth, or maybe not to your listeners, is in First John chapter 4, verse 18, it says, perfect love casts out fear. And I think if you really explore that passage, that is one of the great truths that we can talk about. Although faith and other things are just as important, we can say that if you're frozen by fear, if you're stuck and you cannot move forward, which I believe is the number one problem. And what I mean by that is people just don't get started. And I love how you put it. They just move forward, and people don't move forward because of fear and other anxieties. And so I like to quote First John 4:18 because one of the opposites of fear is love, meaning, you see, fear is all about yourself. It's all about what makes you uncomfortable, what keeps you in the
Yeah.
comfort zone. It freezes you because you don't have certainty. You don't know what the next. It's all about you. But you see, life is, and no disrespect in any ways, life is not just about you. Life is about the higher calling that God has
Yeah.
given to you. Life is about looking at this world and saying, you know what? It's not about my own happiness, not about my certainty. It's not about my whatever, but it's about finding the problem in this world and solving that problem that you are passionate about. And I want to believe that all your viewers, especially the ones in recovery, oh, they probably already have begun to articulate that, because if they have suffered addictions and then they look out into the world and say, man, there are other people who are going through exactly what I'm going through. They're beginning to identify a problem that they can solve because they look at themselves and say, I'm experiencing recovery. I think I can help people like that. And for those people, what's really happening, and hopefully they'll continue that process to fruition, is that they will then overcome their fears. Now, the fears will always be there, okay? But
Yeah.
what it is you are casting it out by love, meaning you are focusing on loving others, giving back to others,
Mm-hmm.
finding a problem to solve, and that's going to cast it out. Now, casting doesn't mean you'll never have fear. Actually, in the original Greek there in First John 4:18, is such an aggressive move. It's almost like a football move, if any of your viewers are football fans. I love the running backs where the defender comes up to them and they literally stiff arm them and they push them out of the way as they run towards the touchdown. And that's what casting out means, is you're going to take it, that fear, and you're going to throw it out. And it's now going to probably come back, okay? Because I think we all live with the threat of fear. I mean, and anxiety and doubts and the imposter syndrome, feeling like people might discover you're a fraud and so many things that haunt them. But you got to grab it, you got to stiff arm it, and you got to throw it out and focus on what? Love. It is more blessed to give than to receive, Acts 20.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stiff arm it and move forward. So don't want to give any mistaken impression to your viewers that they have to now perfectly overcome their fears and have no fear, no anxiety, no self-doubt, and be like this person who's in a perfect state of love. That's not how it works. You're going to continually have the fears, but you're going to have to make an intentional decision. As you said, move forward. Keep moving forward towards being a blessing to other people, making a difference in their lives. And that's what I chose to do. And I want to be transparent with your viewers. I've been doing this for a very long time, but I still have fears. I still have anxieties and doubt. But I have to make a decision every day to cast it out, push it aside, and move forward towards it. And there are important steps towards that. And I know your ministry, Dr. Mark, you focus on that because you're not just trying to give them a pep talk. You want to give them and empower them in a way where they're actually taking the necessary steps. And that's what I try to do in my ministry as well.
Wonderful. And that's, yeah, we adapt the 12 steps into dealing with life issues, which really any anonymous group, recovery group that is 12-step based, how that takes them right into scripture and of course God's plan and so on. So many people misinterpret the 12 steps as only about addiction. It's not. It's about all of life. And of course, that's your approach too, is all of life and looking at life issues, of course, zeroing in on them, but also looking at the broad scope. So given that, what word of encouragement can you now give our viewers as we close today?
Okay. Well, I want to inspire and encourage your viewers to truly believe that God has a great purpose and plan for your life, and that your pain and suffering, your road to recovery, I mean, all of that has great meaning and significance. It's not something that is random and you're destined to live a life of whatever, but truly, God has a great plan and purpose. And I'd like to share Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, where it says, we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand. And that's a great truth I live by and I remind myself of, and that God has a great purpose and plan for my life, and he prepared me for that. And I believe for all your listeners, they can grab hold to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, and truly continue and pursue that greater purpose for their lives.
Well, Pastor TAE, thank you again for joining us here on Check Up with Dr. Mark, and we look forward to working with you more and seeing your material on our Facebook group page for Community Recovery. And of course, we'll have our things on your page and we can share with each other, encourage each other, empower each other as God has given us to do. So God bless you. Thank you. And thanks for watching, everybody. Looking forward to the next time where we'll check up with the Lord and with each other. Peace.